Welcome everyone to Overcome Podcast. And today I'm going to quote Bernardo Faria and say it's a huge honor to have Kendall Reusing with us today. It's amazing. Thank you very much, Kendall, for joining. Appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me and also for dealing with the airport craziness.
Oh, Kendall. So I reached out to you as soon as you had the ADCC injury. It was such a touching moment, mainly when we all saw the video that you recorded at the hospital. Everyone was really praying and rooting for you. So at that time, one thing that caught my attention was not the fact that the injury was pretty bad, but how you reacted, because you basically recorded that video kind of smiling at the same time crying, but super positive. And I remember you saying things. One thing that you said was, "I had many injuries, but this one is different." Why did you feel it was so different?
Man, for a couple of reasons. One, that was probably the most drastic. I dislocated my elbow one time in a wrestling match, but other than that, that was the most drastic injury I'd had mid-match. And a couple of things that made it so extreme were one, the pain was like the worst thing I've ever felt. I've had some bad injuries, and that was the absolute worst. But it was so drastic because this was an event that I had looked at as the Olympics my entire life. And so to feel like I was at a place where I was so capable of winning, I really, really believed I was going to win. I could feel like just the energy was there, everything was there, everything had fit into place. And to have that ripped away while I was like feeling like I was on top of the mountain, like someone just kicked me off the mountain, was really devastating. Two, it was probably the most extreme hospital experience I've ever had. I had like a panic attack in the hospital. I had bad reactions to drugs. It was really, really horrible. But three is this is the injury that I've had with the most lifetime experience I've ever had. So what I mean by that is this is different than others because while this was so like life changing and career changing and really horrible in the moment and drastic and intense, it also came with the knowledge and the proof of my past experiences of like, well, every single injury I've had, even though I can't feel it in the moment, led to something better every single time when I look back at the history of my life. So it was different than all my other injuries for those three reasons.
Interesting. But what is even more interesting is that at the beginning you were very scared about the diagnosis and everything, surgery. It looks like you didn't really go on that direction and you are healing naturally. Is that correct?
Man, it's crazy. Yeah, that's correct. So when I was in the hospital in Vegas, the three orthopedic surgeons came and they told me that my ACL, MCL, and LCL were completely torn, that I had a tibial fracture, and that my patella had dislocated. And they said that this could be career ending or minimum 18 months recovery, or like 12 to 18 months recovery minimum, major surgeries, probably more than one. So here I am in the hospital with this huge tragedy, and they're telling me my career could be over.
Wow.
So yeah, they did a CAT scan and they hadn't done an MRI yet. They had said, we're in the trauma center. It was crazy. So they were like, yeah, with the MRI, you have to stay overnight and you have to stay by yourself. So I was like, oh, hell no. So I went back home, got back home. We did an MRI. My doctor was like, look, you're probably not going to need surgery. The way that a patella dislocates, because you can see it very clearly in the video. So it was a patella dislocation. And he was like, the way that a patella dislocates, you usually don't even tear the other ligaments based on the way the patella has to move. So immediately I was like, oh, okay, well, this is obviously a lot better than we thought. And anyway, it turns out after the MRI and a couple weeks go by, that I have a patella dislocation. I have no torn ligaments other than my MPFL, which is what connects the patella. And that it's very likely that I won't need surgery as long as I'm super, super diligent. So I've been really on top of physical therapy and on top of all my recovery, not pushing it past where it needs to go, and being very patient. And I did a check-in with my doctor last week, and he said that we're ahead of schedule, and it's looking like maybe a couple more months till I'm able to do jiu-jitsu again, but I probably won't need surgery. So I've been very, very fortunate. It's like best case scenario.
That's amazing news. 2 months to have you back training is amazing. And that leads me to the next question is how are you dealing with this whole downtime from the mental aspect? Because for someone that is so active like you, always training, always pushing yourself, suddenly you have to drop everything. And I know that you always stay positive, but there is a mental aspect that you probably keep battling over and over, not being able to do what you love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where the experience of other injuries comes in. I've been lucky, I would say at a very young age, I'm 25. I've been lucky to experience a lot of tragedy and a lot of hardships in my life. And I think that I've learned so many times to craft my identity outside of my sport. And that's really difficult when you're someone whose sport is their career. And so it really, in essence, it's crafting my identity outside of my career, outside of my social media presence, outside of jiu-jitsu completely, outside of teaching. Like when you strip all those things away, because those things can be taken away, who am I and why do I love and respect myself? Why do the people in my life love and respect me? So I think because I've focused so much on that with injuries in the past, like I had a really major back injury 2 years ago that returned earlier this year. So I was actually injured going into ADCC. That was a whole nother journey. That was a whole other story. But so I have the history of crafting this image of myself or my sense of knowing of myself without those things. So when they were taken away, instead of going into like, oh my God, my career or this big thing that I lost, there was about 48 hours maybe or 36 hours or so of having it be really, really difficult to process. But that's something that may use like in the past, maybe it would have taken me weeks or months. I'm a lot faster at processing now. And so immediately we went into like, okay, well, I don't want to bypass these emotions. Let me feel them. Let me really accept like how devastating this is for the moment. And if feelings come up, I let myself feel them. I don't try to push them away because usually for me that gets me in bigger trouble because they grow more and just under the surface until they come out. But it was like, okay, well, great. Let's focus on all the other projects. Let's do some other stuff. It's very hard for me not to be active, but it opened up a lot of other positions for me to be like, okay, I just started my podcast
Yeah,
actually. So I
I
just launched
saw
my
that.
podcast.
Congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really enjoying it. So the first episode will be out December 3rd, but everything's set up. I've been recording. So it's called Get a Grip with Kendall Reusing. So podcast got started. All of my travel and seminars and everything got canceled, obviously, for the end of the year. All my fights got canceled. So it gave me an opportunity to be with my family. Right after the tournament, my grandma passed away.
Oh
And if I
wow.
would have been out of town, I wouldn't have been able to be with my family. And like we did all these things together. We went on a little family vacation, which we haven't done in 8 years after the funeral. I mean, just all of these things happened where if everything had gone as planned, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be challenged and grow in new ways at this moment in life. So I have the podcast. I'm relaunching my coaching program called Jiu-Jitsu Accelerator, and I'm working really, really hard on that right now, which I wouldn't have had the capacity to do. So, I mean, look, I'm not going to look back and say I'm so happy that I went through this experience. I probably will someday. I mean,
Yeah.
it's still fresh, but the truth is that I don't have any regrets. I don't watch the match and think I should have done something differently. It's just this is the path I'm supposed to be on. So it is difficult at times, and being not active is very, very difficult for me. But there's a lot of other stuff you can do to
Well,
clear your
but
cup.
it's amazing. It's truly amazing how you're handling that because I was impressed that 1 week after you were extremely positive. I'm like, wow, she just flipped the switch. It's not everyone is able to do that, and that's why I was so impressive on how you react and how you cope, and then how you immediately start to encourage people to do the same. So I think that that's quite outstanding.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. It comes with a lot of practice and a lot of good people around me and good sources of information and a lot of hard lessons.
Yeah, and one classic sentence from the DCC that you probably remember, of course you remember, is "I love this shit," right? So that
Yeah.
classic sentence when you were leaving the mat, and we, by the way, we're still waiting for the T-shirt when that. If it feels so natural when you go to the match, do you ever feel nervous or any pressure to perform well because it just feels very natural? It just feel like you are enjoying, but at the same time, you are on the most prestigious stage. Do you get nervous, and how you deal with that?
Yeah, it's funny because looking back at that clip, it's almost like the state you get into compete at a professional level is like an altered state. And like I don't walk around all the time with that height of emotion. I mean, that is like a very, very heightened space. I can't just like walk onto a mat and like feel that. That comes with a lot of intention and a lot of preparation and a lot of practice. So I would say that I've always gotten nervous every single time I've stepped onto a mat, every single time I compete since I was 5 years old. So for 20 years, I've always been nervous competing, um, with no exception. But instead of channeling that into fear, because if you think about it, like anxiety and excitement are really the same reaction in the body, right? So it's where we decide to route our brain in one direction or the other that is in our control and gives you either power or gives you a difficult situation to deal with. So I just focus on channeling all of that emotion into excitement. And so really when I say like I love this shit, it's like because that's what we put everything into that box. So like backstage at ADCC when I was warming up, I had this playlist. I'm probably going to share it, but it's like my ADCC playlist that I used in all the training sessions leading up, and then I use it in the warm ups in between matches, things like that. It just is like it's intense, but it's like good vibes. So as the songs are on, I'm like dancing around and I'm moving and I'm looking at my coaches, my mindset coach and Saul and my sister Emma, and I'm like, dude, I feel so good. Like I've never felt so happy in my life. Like I'm so happy. Like I just love to be here. And it was really shifting the focus from like, oh, I have to win. Like that pressure. You asked about pressure. I used to put a lot of pressure on myself, and the truth is like that's imaginary. Like I didn't get what I wanted to in this competition in a very drastic way, and I still love my life.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like that, like my life's going to be the same from one day to the other if I decide that it's going to be the same. If I say that this is the most important thing in the world, and if I don't get it, then I'm a failure, then that's true,
Yep.
right? But if I say, okay, this is a really big tournament, I'm really excited about it, I've been looking forward to it for a long time, but I already love my life now today, like already as it is. I don't need this to fill some hole or some gap that I don't have. So if I already love my life today, then I go and do the tournament. It's like, you can't, I mean, human emotions are human emotions. You're going to feel heightened. You're going to feel upset. You're going to feel excited, whatever, disappointed. But then the next day, and as you keep going, the faster you can process the emotion and get back into like, okay, well, I still love my life. Like, because I know I'm confident that I can do that, the pressure can go off going into the tournament because I know afterward that I'm going to be okay regardless. So if you have that freedom, then it's like, okay, well, I'm still going to feel that human emotion. I'm still going to have that physical sensation. Where do I want to channel that? And then so for me, we decided with my mindset coach and all my coaches, it's like, we're going to channel that into like, man, I love this shit. Like, I'm so excited to be here. So when I said that, I felt that way before the match and after the match and in the
Yeah.
match when I got taken down, you know, like even after I got taken down, I was like, all right, this is cool. I love this. Like, let's go. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, I just it was intentional though. It's very intentional, and anybody can channel that. It's not like a special thing because we all get
Well,
nervous.
but you said it right. Everyone can do it. But I bet you that this is a skill. You develop this over time with experience. Probably in the
Yeah.
beginning of your black belt career, you were not as well crafted
No.
like you are today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been a combat athlete since I was 5, so I've had a lot of practice. So I've had so much experience, and what we decided with my coaches, like leading up, was that I've always had my strongest attribute be my mindset. And that's something that we've always said as far as like in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I've beaten so many people who are really like better or more experienced than I am, um, because I have this mental fortitude and I have this excitement when I go into the mat. So I've been strong in that category for a long time, and I've been had a lot of great mentors and read a lot of books and listened to good podcasts and informed myself with that. But this was more like my mindset coach, Mindset Mike, calls it like weaponizing my mind, right? And so we make my mind my greatest weapon. So the jiu-jitsu is going to be what it's going to be. That's like in another category. That's Saul's job. That's my job to make sure that is sharp. But with my mindset coach, we decided like, okay, we're going to weaponize this as if it's like a new skill set that we're learning. And so we just sharpened it up. We made it more specific, and we really fine tuned it. Yeah. So it's absolutely a skill set.
But you took things to the next level. But as since you start so young and you have such a huge influence of your father also play a role on building this strong mindset, right?
Yeah, I would say my father and my mother, because my parents are both black belts, but really outside of just jujitsu, like they're really experienced people who have had to develop their own mindsets in a lot of different areas. My mom has a PhD in Jungian psychology, so you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who understands the mind better than she does. And so I think between the two of them, they just gave me so many skills coming into the world and going into my sport as with how to not just view competing, but how to view myself. Like it was their number one goal when I was growing up to make sure that my sister and I had very high self esteem. That was like their number one concern, right?
Yep.
So I think when you have that kind of influence around you, and the two most important people in your life are constantly trying to make sure you have high self-esteem and that you're a good member of society. When you apply that in combat sports, you have a very strong foundation that you can build the skill set upon, and you're not starting from scratch. Because then every single time I go into a competition, yeah, I'm confident in the match, but also the after part is what matters. They made sure that we had a very high base level of self-esteem so that if I lost a tournament, I didn't lose my identity, and that's what a lot of people deal with. And I've dealt with that in the micro ways and other ways, in some big ways. So it's crazy to imagine, like, if I didn't have that baseline that they helped me build as a young kid, I don't know what would have happened, because I was already incredibly hard on myself. I would get into really depressed, dark places after losses, just like so many elite athletes do.
Hmm.
So I'm really grateful that they instilled what they did, because without that, man, I don't know how I would have survived it.
Yeah. Recently, you also talk about the importance of surround yourself with positive people and people that will lift you up. It's very important, but it's also very hard nowadays with social media where there is a lot of negativity. How you deal with that, how you channel this positivity into your life, and why are you able to isolate so many, bad comments and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to consumption. We're at such a high rate of consumption in so many ways. Consumption is really everything. It's the stuff that, obviously, the easy version is Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Who are you following? What are you reading? Like, make sure you cleanse that, and that is not putting stuff into your brain that makes you feel worse. Like, it should be uplifting and positive. And sometimes that doesn't mean like some like fake positivity. Like, you can have people talk about real issues, but be on the up and up of like solutions and things like that. So that's number one. But also like podcasts, TV, movies, things of that nature. But the most important, in my opinion, is the people you spend your time with. Like, you are consuming them. You're consuming their words. You're consuming what they share with you, their behaviors, their attitudes, their energy. And so the best way, in my opinion, to start to feel more positive yourself or be in a better place yourself is to first adjust your consumption and look at what you're taking in, because we are community-based beings, right? And so everything that is around us, we are like attaching ourselves to in micro ways. There's healthy attachment, unhealthy attachment, obviously. So that's kind of a different conversation. But attachment is not a bad thing when it's, with things that are positive for us. And so, and I mean, you can't totally love unattached. Like, there's an unhealthy version of that, but you can love in an attached way. So if you're with people that you love, you want to make sure that, like, again, what you're taking in is bringing you up rather than bringing you down. And I also want to say that we're human. Everyone has down times. Like, when I posted this, a lot of people were commenting and messaging me like, oh, okay, got it. I won't hang out with anybody who ever goes through anything bad. Or like, I was like, man, come on. Like, I literally say in the video, like, people have problems,
Yeah.
Like, of course, like, I have been so deeply supported when I've gone through hard things
Yeah.
and tough times. I've had people stick by me when I was not the most positive person to be around, right? I was dealing with my own stuff. But the general sense of it is, do these people make my life better, or do they make my life worse, right? Or do I want to be more like them, or do I not want to be like them? And so for me, I had to really audit my life and say, I am very intentionally only spending time with people I want to be more like. Unless sometimes I'm in a teaching position or a coach or whatever, that's like a separate, you decide you're going to do some sort of mentorship or things like that. But for the most part, I really only spend quality time with people I want to be more like,
Yeah.
in one way or the other,
Yeah.
and there's an interchange there. They might not want to be more like my career, but maybe they want to be more like my relationships with my family, or I might not want to be more like them uh, lifestyle wise, but I want to be more like, there's so many different examples, right?
Hmm.
That wasn't a good example, but there's people give and
I
take
get
in
it.
those
I get it.
different ways.
Yep, yep. Because jiu-jitsu is almost like a work for you. So there is the whole concept of work-life balance. So that you also need to unplug from the sports and from everything to live your own life, your own stuff, and very important to keep that balance.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have a ton of friends that are elite jiu-jitsu and MMA athletes. I have and or wrestling athletes. I have a couple, but for the most part, like for me, that's work. And I have some close friends in the industry, but a lot of my really close friends are not in the industry at all, and I'm alike with them in different ways outside of just jiu-jitsu or competing or MMA or wrestling, right? So that's an important thing too. But my I do feel like work-life balance for me, like a lot of what I do is jiu-jitsu related, even different parts of my work are jiu-jitsu related, right? But it's more like chasing the parts of it that you really like and that feel good for you. Like for example, for me, I taught for years and years and years full time. I liked the lifestyle at the time, but then something started to shift, and I didn't really like teaching so much. So for a while, I kept doing it, and I realized that it was really, really draining me, and I stopped really enjoying jiu-jitsu as much. And so I had to pull back from my teaching, and I started doing more business management. And I started doing other things. And I run a couple of schools, so I leaned more into that instead of teaching, and we hired new people. So being able to stick with your passions, but but let go of the parts that you like can let go of when they are draining you rather than filling your cup. And that really is like one of those things with consumption again, or like attachments. It's like just the sense of like being grateful for the life that you have, and then having the self-awareness to tap into what you like and what you don't like, and then and who you like and who you don't like, what lifts you up, what brings you down, those kinds of things, and having the courage to go in that direction. And it was like courageous for me to stop teaching, because that was a really great source of income. It was exactly what I had done for so long. I knew that my students were counting on me, and so I had to do it in a responsible way. I slowly kind of phased out, but that was really, really difficult. And it was the best thing that I ever did. Or even now, like in jiu-jitsu, I could still be, even though I'm injured, like I could be trying to go around and teach seminars and do privates and be like, oh, I just need to make some money, but that wouldn't make me happy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it might be scary to start new projects, but that's what I'm going to do because it's exciting.
Yeah, and
And that's another thing
you are
about being
exploring new
positive.
things, exploring new skills, developing new skills, and open up the opportunity to do new things. I think that's great. I think that diversifying your portfolio is extremely important, and you doing that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would feel about like commentating and interviewing and all the stuff that I'm doing in that arena as well. I didn't know how much I was going to like it when I started. And there also have been things that I've started and then I didn't like, even though they were lucrative. I was just like, you know what, this is not the thing for me. This is not what I want to do. And I think there's this thing by Gary Vee that I find really interesting where he's like, procrastination isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's like teaching you what you don't like, or what you're not as talented in, or what you don't want to do. And so that's really good information. Instead of beating yourself up about it, it's like, is there a way I can outsource this? Can I hire somebody to do this? Can I get support? Should I be doing something else instead? Should I totally pivot? And there are a lot of different varying solutions there, but I think that's something that I've followed really, really closely. So for example, like with my podcast now, there's parts of it that I'm not that talented in. There's parts of it that I don't enjoy. And so it's funny, Sula is who you emailed with.
Yeah, yeah.
She's like one of my best friends in the whole world. She just won the Nogi Euros today, by the way. She's incredible.
She is
So
great.
she's one
She
of
is
my best
great.
friends. But she started first assisting me, then started kind of like managing me, and now we're almost like partners, really. Like we're so interconnected. But I hired her to outsource a lot of the stuff that she's talented in that I'm not, right? So that's another way you can, but even though that was a leap for me financially, because I run the jiu-jitsu school, so I'm very familiar with hiring and business, but I'd had like some lower level hires. I had never hired someone for as many hours like that, like a real position, until her. And that was a leap for me to do that. And it was a little bit scary, like, oh, is this going to work? But what it has done is it's freed up, going back to being positive and passionate and all that stuff. It's freed up so much of my time and my energy and my mind that I'm do a much better job at the things that I'm doing. And it's opened up my capacity to do more. And I get to support her in that process.
But
So that's
you still managing your social media, right? That's you, not her.
yes. I manage the social media. So that's me. Anytime it's social, it's me. And I don't see that changing because it's important to me for that to be me.
Stay connected. Stay
But yeah,
connected. Yeah.
yeah, stay connected. The whole reason, like, people ask about social media growth and stuff, and I'm like, man, I don't have any like tips and tricks because the truth is I've always just used Instagram kind of as like a personal journal. I literally just go on and talk about what's going on in my head, and I think that people really connect to that,
Yeah.
and uh, and
Now,
that's why it's fun for me.
now there is one thing that you said many times in your Instagram about feeling good with your own skin, and you always
Mhm.
preach about that, and mainly about women feeling good with their own skin. And someone that doesn't know you and see those poses, like, well, of course she is like is the Queen K. She has all these followers, she has all these titles, accolades, and everything. Of course, she's gonna feel great with her skin. But I think that you are going to a much deeper discussion there. Can you elaborate more why you always bring that up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people have this false sense of like successful people having this one persona all the time, right? And so it's not to say that I don't go into feeling like really confident and happy and like untouchable, like I'm on top of the world. Yeah, I have that sometimes. Like if, for example, in the I love this shit video, that was one of those times I was like, man, I feel like just unstoppable right now. But at the same time, I would say that some of the most like successful or high achieving people also know like the darkest lows as well. A lot of times those kind of extremes, you can't only get one and not get the other. It's like a pen. It's a there's a metaphor about it. I can't think of the right word, but it's kind of like a seesaw, right? Like what goes up must come down. And so you have to, like, if you want to live in really high highs, you have to know that there are going to be lows. It's not to say that, like, oh, you're inevitably going to be depressed, but
Yeah.
it's just, accepting that you don't get one extreme and not have anything else either. So I also think that especially on social media and just media in general, it's really easy to be fooled into thinking that people feel the same way all the time because that's what they're portraying. And I don't a lot of people really get upset about that, and they're like, people should talk about their insecurities more and they shouldn't always try to like act so fake and pose and things like that. But the truth is, man, like when I log onto social media, I know what I'm getting myself into. I know that I'm opening that up and I'm seeing curated things and I'm seeing one version of a person. And so I think if we have that self responsibility when we log in, that we should be able to filter that for ourselves. And whatever people feel like putting out there, they should put out there. Like it's honestly, it's a very vulnerable thing to talk about insecurities and stuff on social media or to post things where you don't look so flattering or do that kind of stuff. Because whenever I do, I get tons of hate. I get tons of insults because there are people out there who see any kind of crack in the veneer and they like dive into it and they try to like that's really sad but that's just the truth. And I feel really sad for those people. I have a lot of compassion and empathy for them because like very very genuinely, because I would really hate to be in that position where I would feel that way. Just it's very sad, right? I can't imagine. But so I don't ever feel like, oh, anyone else needs to do that because it's not easy. It's a lot to ask. Like we don't like owed that by people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I try to share, just to say like I feel like I can take the negative aspects that come with it, and it's important to me that people know that when they're looking at somebody, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, because also like nobody shows you when they're sitting at home eating leftover pizza on the couch in like their pajamas. Like you don't see that, but we all do that. Like whatever somebody's doing at home is their own human
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah.
Whoever you're looking at on social media or in media or on TV is doing the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that needs to be widely understood, so that when people look up to people and say, oh, I want to accomplish this thing that they did, or I want to do what he's doing, they feel like a sense of relation of like, oh, I can do that too because they're just like me.
Yeah.
Instead of saying like, oh, they must be so different, they're so special, they have something that I don't. That's not the case. So that's why I like to talk about it a lot, to just say like, we're the same. Like, don't get confused. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, everybody, we are all one. We're all made of the same stuff. So I think that's why it's important to talk about. But I also don't feel like anyone should feel pressured to do that because it is a vulnerable thing.
Yeah, but again, you are very transparent, and I love the way that you deal with haters with your replies, because you are extremely polite, and that the fact that you are polite when you reply just shuts down every argument. So I love it. Yeah. And I saw one. I'm not gonna mention. I saw one Yes, just yesterday that you were commenting,
Yeah.
and your reply was amazing. I'm not gonna give audience to this person, but I read your reply, and it was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't always do it. Sometimes it's better to ignore, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? Maybe this could be helpful to somebody, or not even for that person, but maybe somebody who feels like I do, who's going to be hurt by that comment because they identify with me or whatever. It reminds me of something. Like they can see that and be like, oh, okay, I don't actually need to be insulted by this person. Like I could feel compassion. Like, man, that's actually really sad. Not in like a self-righteous, like fake, like, oh, I feel bad for you kind of way, like almost like virtue signaling, but like in a real genuine way. Like if you think about it, like, man, I would hate to be that
Yeah.
person. Like that's really unfortunate. And yeah, so I think sometimes it's worth responding with a little bit of politeness and truth, you
Yeah.
know.
No, I know that you are about to leave, so I just want to ask a last question. Are you walking pain free? Are you able to move without pain? How's your state right now?
Yeah, so I have almost all of my range of motion back, not quite as far as like bending and straightening. I can walk pretty pain free, but if I walk for longer than like 10 minutes, then it will get a little bit sore. So I have to do a lot of elevating, a lot of icing still. And I can do like an air squat, which is really amazing, but not with weight yet. And I can do a little bit of exercise. So just in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten back to being able to move a little bit more and get sweaty, which is so nice. I got on the elliptical for the first time last week, so
Oh,
that was really
cool.
great. Yeah, so we're getting there. Thank you.
Kendall, thank you very much for squeezing in this time at the airport here in Dallas. I'm also in Dallas, so it's
Nice.
really cool to have you here again. Keep your recovery, keep us updated. Good luck on your podcast. I have no doubt that it'll be extremely successful as everything you do. And we are looking forward to
Thank you.
seeing the match with all the these enthusiasms that you bring to every fight.
Awesome, Yuri. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Take care. Have a safe flight.